like to be plugged in there. Sometimes when you change them, you mean the screen wasn't meant to go to sleep?
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes if you change the setting, it's only if it's the power cord's plugged in.
Ah,
I don't
okay.
know. You might be able to do it when it's just on battery as well.
That's interesting. Maybe I'll get the power cord for this anyway, just so the battery doesn't die too.
I'm going to talk about this paper. It's from Neural Image and from the Larry's. He's talking about encoding and decoding in fMRI. Okay. Firstly, some background. So, the last 20 or 30 years, fMRI research focused on the more sensitive techniques for analyzing the information presented in the fMRI data, or the both signal data, and to decode the information. The linear classification or linear regression is well used. And another possible way to get the information from the brain activity is use the voxel-based encoding model. And this, okay, I will talk about it later. And actually, the encoding and decoding operation are complementary. The encoding is use the stimuli to predict the brain activity, but decoding is use the brain activity to predict the stimuli of the task. But in fMRI, the relationship between encoding and decoding is rarely discussed. So I will talk about it. Okay, so in this paper, the Larry proposed a linearizing feature space or linearizing encoding model. And okay, ignore these words, and I will directly talk about this model. So, what is linearizing encoding model? It's very straightforward. It's very simple. It just model the visual process of our brain. When we see a picture, and our brain compute this image and map to the feature area. So we know in our brain, this area is responsible for maybe the face. This area is responsible for a picture of house. It's not critically right, but it's very general idea. So this is picture. And with the help of the fMRI, we can observe the brain activity in this area. And if we are interested in this area is called region of interest. So he proposed to use 3 spaces. The input space is just to resolve this picture into high dimensional space. And the dimensions are the pixels. For example, if we have a 64 by 64 picture, and this will be 4096 dimension space. And then we map this picture into the feature space, and then it can be mapped into activity space. So what is feature space? In this paper, they give 2 examples to describe the feature space. One is from the Larry's colleague, and another is from Larry's study. Okay, so the example from case study is K represents the nature image to the subject, and convolve the image with the Gabor wavelength. After convolving, after the Gabor filter, we can have the feature of the image. It is, for example, this is the image of face, after the filter, we have the edge of the face and some edge of eyes and things. And the dimensions of the feature space will be the location of the edge, the orientation of the edge, and the spatial frequency. It means the occurrence of the edge appear in our session. So in the feature space, it's only 3 dimensions. One is orientation, one is the location, another one is spatial frequency. Another example is they use the same dataset, the same experimental protocol, but they use the thematic category. They label the same nature images into for example, it's a face, it's a house, it's a car. So in the feature space, it will be a face, a house, or car. If this picture, for example, if this picture has a face, 2 house, and a car, and then this picture will be mapped into this point in the feature space. So in the experiment, in the analysis, one picture is mapped into 1 point in the feature space, and also 1 point in the input space. So after this, we have a linear mapping from the feature space to the activity space. Okay, so the question comes. The linear mapping is between the input space and feature space, and why is linear mapping? Because the author said it is very interesting communication between the brain and our between the retina and the brain. And why is linear mapping between the feature space and activity space? Because this area is responsible for this feature, and this will map its activity into the location. For example, this voxel 1, voxel 2. So another question is, why this mapping cannot be unlinear? Why? Can we use unlinear mapping between the feature space and the activity space?
We can.
We can, yes, we can. And from machine learning perspective, because our brain is very complex activity, it's better to use complex model to describe this process. So always non-linear map classification or mapping, will get better prediction or accuracy in this process. But why we just use linear mapping? An example is if we just measure the activity in our retina, we give the subject 2 images, 2 category of image. One is face, one is house. So we observe that activity, and we apply the nonlinear classification to decode this activity. We can say, okay, so this is the subject is seeing an image of car. This is seeing an image of house, but we cannot draw a conclusion that okay, we can decode based only on the activity in the retina, because it is well agreed that this kind of category classification is across many stages in our visual processing. So if we just use linear classification, it will avoid this kind of error or fault.
This doesn't seem really completely in accordance with the data we were just discussing. It is a little bit. I think what he's doing here, because he's saying, try encoding model A. If you get good results using classification and the standard sum, using linear classification, then there's some correspondence between the encoding model and the actual non-linear classification that.
But also like the way they choose the features is also an arbitrary, not data-driven way.
I think they use Gabors here or something like that, which is yeah. I read it.
It's known that there are nuances selected to
Right.
edges and orientation
Right,
and so
right.
on, and so it's I guess reasonable that way to do it.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's not necessarily data-driven.
No, and I
How do they select the ROIs?
They just I will talk about it later in the example. Okay, so I will show you how to build the encoding model. So the example goes like, we give the subject stimuli, and it's just the nature sceneries, and we continue give the subject stimuli, and firstly we have the activity space, and we have the ROI, region of interest. It's a very large area. It covers V1, V2, V3, and some more. So this is because this involves the visual processing. So it's very large area, and we map all the voxels here into the high dimensional space, which is activity space. So this is voxel 1, voxel 2, voxel 3, and we keep give the subject stimuli. So we have we map the voxels here into array, and then this one array will be one point in activity space. So the question is, if we give the subject the same stimuli, can we have the same point all the time here? Can we?
it wouldn't be because it's dynamic.
Yes, because we will have stochastic errors and noise. So always, even given the fixed stimuli, we have different brain activity. Even the same voxel, the same order. So when we map into the activity space, it's like this. One trail here, one trail, another trail here, another trail here, another trail here. So finally, it will be a cloud. So it's like this. So this is, we have fixed stimuli, and we have many trials. So one trial is one point here. So finally, in the active space, it's a cloud. So what we are going to do now? How do we predict which activity is related to our stimuli or our feature? How do we do that?
Excuse me, so the feature on the left is like many points corresponding to different presentations of the same stimulus.
Yes.
And what is the thing on the right?
It's just ignore it.
feature.
Just ignore it. It's fine.
Using it's a separate.
Okay. Yeah, because I guess every
No, no.
stimulus that's
Yeah,
corresponds to one point
Yeah.
in space. right?
What you're saying is that you present the second stimuli, you repeat it
No,
many times.
no. Just one stimulus.
What do you want to decode with one stimuli? I didn't understand the question.
I mean, we have stimuli. So how do we predict the activity?
So he wants to find out which activity
Right.
Is
You
that
are
all of these
encoding,
files,
encoding,
yeah.
not decoding.
Yeah.
Encoding.
So the way the author proposed is very simple. It's just to calculate the probability. This will involve some mathematics, but I will take care of it. Okay. So let's make some denotation. Let's use the S, present the stimulus. Let's use the R, present the response activity. Let's use this F function, present the nonlinear mapping from the stimuli, from the image to the feature space. So this is the linear mapping. And if we put the stimulus into this f function, we got feature. So with this, we can do a calculation like we want to estimate the probability given the feature and the probability of the response activity. So what we're going to do is we have this fixed, and we iterate all the points in this space, and we calculate the probability, and we get the max 1. And we get the, sorry, it should be. We get the maximum one. And then we have a transformation matrix to transform the feature into the activity space. And this transformation matrix is just a linear mapping. Remember, it's linear mapping between the feature space to the activity space. So this matrix includes the column. The column is the feature. The row is the row is the voxels. So if we get the activity that maximizes this probability, then we can have this transformation matrix. And this matrix is actually the encoding model. Okay. So can we derive a decoding model from the encoding model? Can we do that? Because we have this. Because we can observe all the activities given the stimuli. Because we have all the tribes. We have collection of tribes. So what we are going to do is a very simple theorem. I will do this for you. So we have experiment. So we have the probability of the response activity given the feature. And we want to estimate the probability of the feature given the response. Right? This is decoding. We did another way around.
Maybe it's enough. You turn it up and
something just popped up on your screen here, so might be because of that.
Okay. So we're doing from the activity space to the feature space. So we have the activity, and we want to predict which stimulus is presented, which feature is presented. So from the Bayesian theorem, it's the on the bottom is the probability of the response activity, and the probability of response activity given the probability, given the stimulus, given the feature, times the probability of the feature. So we have this formula. Remember, we have the activity, and we want to predict a collection of features or stimulus. So this one is fixed, it's constant across features. So we can ignore this one. And how about the probability of the features? If we make the stimulus have the equal chance presented to the subject, this probability will be flat, will be uniform distribution. So any feature is constant in terms of probability of the feature. So the probability of the feature given the response is actually obey the probability of the response activity given the feature. So for this in machine learning, it's just you just need to choose a classifier that can accept this distribution and load the data and press the start button. Then you can get the decoding model. It's very easy and simple idea. And the author think in the fMRI data, this kind of, because ideally, if there's no, there is absolutely no noise, the activity point given the stimulus should be here. But because of the noise and errors, so the point has the bias and offset. So this kind of bias and offset obeys the Gaussian distribution. So this formula describes the Gaussian distribution, and this matrix, sigma 1, is describing the covariance matrix, and that covariance matrix describes the size and the shape of this cloud. Okay, so when we derive the decoding model from the encoding model, and it's like this. We have a lot of features, and this feature and this point is the feature that has the highest chance to be the feature given to the stimulus, given to the subject. So this is also cloud, and the dentist part is the optimal one.
Okay, so like that is playing from the left by inverting.
Yes.
After estimating the covariance matrix.
Yes. So can we derive the encoding model from decoding model? Can we do that? The question, this is my question, can we do that? Yes or no?
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, because we have Bayesian theorem. If we have the probability of response activity given the feature, and we can do the other way around. We can calculate this probability. But actually, in practical, it's impossible because it's very difficult to estimate this. It's very difficult to estimate this given the response activity and the feature, because you cannot identify all the features related to the brain activity. It's too complex. So they also proposed a procedure about how to analyze the fMRI data. So firstly, we have give subject stimulus, and we have the collection of data, and then we divide the data into the training set and validation set. And then we use the procedure I demonstrate. We put them into the encoding model, and we try to estimate. We try to estimate every activity here, and we get the optimal model, and we have the transformation matrix. That is the optimal encoding model. And then we derive the decoding model from encoding model.
But this looks like a regularized what is done in practice in the regularized least square, but without regularization, right? Because it's
with Gaussian assumption is regular least square, and it's the same thing. Regular least square under Gaussian assumption is the same as the maximum.
Okay, then I will talk about the comparison between the encoding model and decoding model. So I will try to use encoding model and decoding model to answer these 5 questions, so that you can see, okay, what's the difference between them. So does a region of interest contain information about some specific set of features? Can we use decoding model to answer this question? Yes, we can, because if we have data set, we can if we encode the feature into experiment, we can say, okay, if the encoding model predict the activity with a quite high accuracy, so we can say, okay, this area contains the feature we want.
But again, how do they select these ROIs beforehand?
I've always selected, lots of activity here, we'll look at that, and then they say,
Because if you say a set of features, it can be
yeah,
that varies with the feature. So does an ROI contain information?
so here the
Depend on the
features,
ROI.
so the features are already in the encoded space, yeah?
Yes, I guess
What I mean is that they are not doing statistics before doing this. They're not saying, okay, let's present motion stimuli, non-motion stimuli, empty, not active. Okay, this is the
Well,
ROI.
They don't actually do an experiment here at all, it's totally methodological, but they only discuss this, not about how to choose the ROI. I don't think so.
I mean, you can have several candidates
Yeah.
of ROI. So you will tell, okay, so this ROI has the more information in terms of this set of features.
Isn't it double dipping then? If you select an ROI based on more activity and then apply a decoding or encoding algorithm on that ROI?
Yes.
So is that double dipping?
It's a scientific hypothesis.
Yeah.
Right. So you have to design your experiment to test something.
I think, I mean, if you've got like candidate features, you have a candidate encoding model. You essentially what you do is you use the encoding model and assess the quality of the linear regression. In this case, it's linear regression. And if the linear regression
But the encoding model
yes.
is based on ROIs. That's what I'm saying, not on boxes. So you have selected them before doing the encoding model. You are encoding based on ROIs.
But when you, I mean, if it's V1, you would have a particular encoding model, and if it's something else, you have a
You
different.
can apply the encoding model to whatever you want.
Yeah.
But if the area is not responsive, if that particular ROI is not responsive to your stimulus, whether you encode or decode, you're still going to get nothing, right? So there has got to be some science involved that you actually have to establish the hypothesis from what you already know about what the brain does, what each area does, but they're just saying, yeah, well, you're doing a good job of telling us what they're saying, so I'll let you continue.
So both encoding model and decoding model can tell you, okay, this area contains the information of the set of the feature, because if this area we apply the decoding model and they get quite high accuracy, we can see, okay, it can predict this feature. And if the information we presented with some ROI important for behavior, can encoding model tell us? No, encoding model cannot tell us, because you cannot say, okay, we have an encoding model, and it predicts this activity with a high accuracy, and this accuracy say, okay, it can predict, it's related to this behavior. No, you don't have a threshold to say, okay, accuracy of about 70%, then we have this kind of behavior. Yeah, but decoding model does that, because we have the activity and we predict, okay, subject is receiving a picture of face. So this kind of feature can relate to the human's behavior.
But you can use the behavior as it was a feature.
Yes. When we predict the feature, we predict the task outcome, it can relate to the human behavior. But you cannot say, okay, we predict the brain activity, and this activity relate to the human behavior.
I think what Fabiana is saying that you could make your feature, for example, the position of the arm in space,
Okay.
and then you can say something about the position of the arm in space by the encoding.
Okay. The specific ROI contains a relatively more information about a specific set of features. Can we use encoding model to say that? Yes. We can. We have the same encoding model, we have the same feature, and we predict the activity across many ROIs. So if this ROI, for example, ROI A has the higher prediction, okay, we can say, okay, this area contains more information about the features we presented. And also, decoding model can do that as well. If we decode better in this area, okay, we can see this area contains more information about this feature. Are there specific features that are better presented in a single ROI? Can we use encode model to answer this? I think we can, because if we have the fixed ROI, and we can test all the feature space, and if we get, okay, we say this feature space has a better prediction in this ROI, okay, we can say, okay, this feature is preferred in this area. But decoding model cannot say it. Why? If we have decoding model and we predict the activity with different feature space. I have an example. For example, we have two feature space. One is the image converted by the gap wavelet, and the value here is continuous value. Another space is semantic category. The same pictures, but categorized by like the car or house. And this is discrete value here. We will apply machine learning method, and we get the classifier. But this one is continuous. This is discrete, and we have accuracy. But accuracy is measured in different way for continuous value and discrete value. So you cannot say, okay, accuracy in this feature space is higher than this, so this feature space is preferred in this area, because they are measured in different ways. So decoding model cannot say it, okay. And what set of features provide a complete functional description of the ROI? This question is quite interesting because if we have brain and we have an area of a region of interest, we want to say, okay, what on earth this region is responsible for? So if we use encoding model, we can try all the feature space. We have lots of feature space. We can try all of them, and but we don't need to try all of them. When we reach an optimal one, for example, we have feature space 1, 2, 3. If we are lucky, the third one gets the best prediction in this area of activity. Then we can say, okay, this feature space is the complete. It's a complete functional description of this area. But decoding model cannot do that. Why? Because if we use decoding model to predict the feature space, and if that feature space is just a subset of the optimal one, we have a whole set. This feature space has a whole set of feature 1, feature 2, and if we use decoding model, and decoding model just predict a subset of this, and this decoding model will has the highest 100% prediction accuracy. But we cannot say this is a complete description, because another subset can also achieve 100%. And the optimal one, the whole set can achieve 100% as well. You cannot. I mean, it's very time consuming and difficult to get all the feature space assessed by this decoding model. So encoding model is better, and even though you get the 100%, you cannot say okay, it's the optimal. It's a complete description.
But even for the encoding model, that like it's only like a purely theoretical idea, right? Because
Yes.
it assumes that you might be able to predict every single ion channel opening or closing in every neuron and every node region, given by just constraining your stimulus very carefully and then focusing on the case, right?
I guess it's
So I have a general question with this encoding models now, which comes again, once again with the ROIs. I don't do fMRI, but I think this is the same for EEG or whenever you are doing decoding. What's the advantage? I think this is a question for me, it's interesting. What's the advantage of doing this encoding and decoding model? Wait. In comparison to just doing the average of the whole information in the region of interest, so in classical analysis. Do you have better results? Does this tell you anything new about the brain? What's the average? And this is why I was asking the question about the ROIs. Because if you know that an area is responsive to motion, and then you encode it and you decode it, and you say this is 70% of accuracy, that you can have the same doing the average. So what's the advantage of doing that?
I guess if you do the average, you also lost some information. Right?
What kind of information do you lose? And do you gain it in accuracy in the end? This information gives you better accuracy. So if you do the average, you have 70%, and if you don't do the average, if you do encoding and decoding, you have 78.
I think if you do the average of a response of something, whether it's fMRI, electrophysiology, whatever G, to a stimulus, that essentially is applying some sort of encoding model, right? I think all they're basically trying to say is the limitations of the encoding and the decoding model and how they kind of link with each other. So if you know what the probability of the stimulus given the response, which is essentially the encoding model, you can calculate using Bayes' rule the probability. Sorry, if you know the response given the stimulus, which is basically the encoding model, you can get to the decoded model by using Bayes' rule to calculate the stimulus given the response. But I think they're just saying the limitations of the two methods is what I got out of it. Meaning that what we were discussing before, where yes, you can kind of try and get to know what the area is doing with the encoding model, but the limitation is you can't possibly present all possible sets of stimuli, right? Because that's just impossible. And essentially they're saying that in the decoding model you can get to 100% accuracy, but you can't say that this area, this region of interest is especially used for, I don't know, decoding faces and houses, because there could be a million other things it can perform well at. So,
but what are the accuracies of these decoding models?
There's no details about this.
Usually it's around,
but that's
around 70%.
I don't know, but it depends on the data. I mean, they don't present any data, but it's a different way of asking you, well, analysing your data set, if you like, asking the question of how much information, using the decoding model, which you can derive from your optimal encoding model, to see how much information there is to do that particular task, is what I got out of it. Yeah, sorry.
Maybe like in the one-dimensional case, it's quite similar to the p-value you get from an appropriate statistical base. Maybe like the advantage comes when you are considering higher dimensional spaces in the space of the possible responses, like if you are combining across boxes, and then maybe activity can increase in some voxel and increase in other voxels. And so I guess these methods are designed to pick up things already from the data without look at all patterns in each voxel.
But what's the difference in accuracy again? When you
So
do the average, when you do that?
So when you say average, you mean what you'll do at threshold, and if the average is above, you'll say
Similar,
it's
for so regional of interest, you have this bold response, this other bold response, you make a t-test.
But like average across space as well across boxes. But for example, you have average with different boxes.
Inside the region of interest, all the boxes inside the region of interest. Say.
The
more active, less
to
active.
one stimulus, you always have this response. In response to the other stimulus, you always have this response. So obviously there is information there. And if you calculate the average, you don't see anything.
You have information for the classical analysis of fMRI. You have all response for one stimuli.
Yeah, but
All
that's assuming that